This is a segment from obviously Hardball with Chris Matthews, and it's regarding the enthusiasm gap between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Now, I have a big problem, obviously, with Hillary Clinton, and I think she's full of shit. But that being said, Hillary Clinton has called in every favor with every black politician, I guess, in the damn country, because she is constantly getting these quote-unquote old line black politicians that are supporting her. But I want you to listen to this particular female black representative, and again, I want you to listen to what she says. She's not going to say anything. Chris Matthews presses her on on Bernie Sanders, what he's going to do, and then he in turn presses her on what Hillary Clinton's going to do. And the answer is Hillary Clinton is going to sit down and try, to work something out, I guess, with the other side. That's bullshit, okay? That she is going to do the same thing that Bernie's going to do, except Bernie's goals and aspirations are like a universe higher, okay? So, and they always tell you when you're negotiating, always start high, okay, so that you leave yourself some room to back down a little bit. Well, Clinton is not starting high. She's starting basically in the middle, which would allow her to be pushed more to the right, okay? And again, this is not the first time that this particular woman has been on MSNBC in Wisconsin pushing Clinton. And I have absolutely no respect for a lot of these politicians, because it's not that they're pushing for the people. In my opinion, they're basically just pushing for themselves and for what they can get out of the situation if they side with Clinton and she's successful. So anyway, here's a clip from Chris Matthews.
We're going to have a bounce going into New York State, where I think we can win. If we win in New York State, between you and me, I don't want to get Hillary Clinton more nervous than she already is. She's already under a lot of pressure.
He's right about that.
So don't tell her this. But I think we win here, we win in New York State, we're on our way to the White House.
Welcome back to Harvard. That was, of course, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont this morning at a rally in Janesville, Wisconsin, taunting his Democratic rival Hillary Clinton and sounding, I thought, very confident ahead of tomorrow's big Democratic primary out here in Wisconsin. The Real Clear polling average in Wisconsin shows Sanders right now leading former Secretary Hillary Clinton by just under 3 points, so it's still a close one. Spinning hard, Clinton's chief strategist Joel Benenson, however, says that Wisconsin is tailor-made for a Sanders victory. Talk about spin. Here he comes.
It is much less diverse than most of the states we compete in Democratic primaries. It's got a lower population of African Americans, a very small population of Latinos. We've done very well in building a diverse coalition, which is why we've won far more primary elections than Senator Sanders has, and compiled a bigger net delegate lead in those primaries by a lot than he has. The key here in Wisconsin is to, compete hard, try to win this state. But in either way this state comes out, I think it's close enough. There isn't going to be a big shift in the 230 or plus pledged delegate advantage that Hillary Clinton has right now.
See, and that's what gets me. See, the black people and Hispanics, not so much Hispanics, but the black people are falling for Hillary Clinton's bullshit. And that's all she's spewing is bullshit. She's calling in favors. Bernie was way out in front of her on damn near every topic you want to talk about that's important to African Americans and to Hispanics and other minorities. And then and he's constantly pulling her to the left. Okay, she wasn't all that hot on the incarceration rates until he called her on it, and then she had to admit that it was her husband's policies that fucked up black families by incarcerating black men in particular at a super high rate, that created the 3 strikes law that basically changed the classification of rock cocaine versus powder cocaine, which obviously, I can't say obviously, but put a lot more black people in jail for longer periods of time than white people. So somebody's got to point to one thing that she specifically did for black people, because I can point to several things that specifically had a negative effect on the black community.
Well, a win here in Wisconsin would extend Sanders' victories to 6 out of the last 7 contests and propel him to New York's primary on April 19th and pretty much to the top of his game. MSNBC correspondent Casey Hunt is covering Bernie Sanders right now, and it was a rally in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee right now. Patrick Healy, by the way, is the New York Times correspondent covering the campaign as well. And here with me in Milwaukee is U.S. Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin. She's actually here from this area of Milwaukee.
Okay, and that's the thing. Wisconsin does not have a huge black population. I believe there's like a 9% black population in the state of Milwaukee. And guess where? I'm sorry, in Wisconsin. And the majority of that 9% is located in Milwaukee. And in Milwaukee County is that stupid ass Sheriff John Clark Jr., and he don't know his ass from a hole in the ground. But this woman has swallowed the Clinton Kool-Aid, and she's trying to piss it out to her constituents, and they're not doing their research. The thing about people, if you believe all the bullshit that you see on mainstream media, then you got a major issue, and that's what the problem I have with a lot of Fox people. They swallow that Fox bullshit without doing their own research. Fox is right on some things. I am not going to sit up here and try to tell you that they are not accurate on some things. But their slant basically is what gets me, because they may take a small thing that they're right on and then wrap it around a whole bunch of other crap that they're wrong on. So anyway, let me continue this particular segment of Chris Matthews.
She's supporting Hillary Clinton. Let me go to Casey on this. Casey, it all seems within the margin of error out here in Wisconsin on both sides.
Hey, Chris, yeah, forgive me, I can't hear you terribly well because what's going on here is either a rave or a concert. I can't really tell exactly what, but we are waiting for Bernie Sanders, and he obviously is pretty confident going into this. You talked a little bit about, showed what he had to say earlier, but I think there is a little bit of danger here in the expectations game for Bernie Sanders. At this point, we're looking at the margin of his win, and if Hillary Clinton can plausibly argue after tomorrow's results that she held her own, that this wasn't a significant win. Remember, for Bernie Sanders to catch Hillary Clinton in this delegate lead, he has to win states, and he has to win them big by margins of 60% to 40%. And their argument's going to be, if he can't do that in Wisconsin, where else is he going to do it? That said, if he does do well here, it's going to set up 2 weeks heading into New York that are potentially very difficult for Hillary Clinton. And I think looking ahead, the Sanders campaign is planning a series of major events in New York City, all expected to draw potentially thousands of people. We saw tens of thousands, basically, in the Bronx, 18,000 people showing up. That's going to be a potentially embarrassing and difficult stretch for her to deal with in her adopted home state. Although one note I will say, Chris, back to Wisconsin, the crowds today have not been where they often are for Senator Sanders. They've been smaller. Even this rally's a little smaller in Green Bay, had a crowd of hundreds, not thousands. That's pretty unusual. Whether it's a telling sign ahead of tomorrow, we'll have to wait to find out.
Okay, thank you very much, Casey Hunters with the Sanders campaign. Patrick Healy, you write in the New York Times today, quote, despite the urging of some advisors, Mr. Sanders refused last fall in early winter to criticize Mrs. Clinton over her $675,000 in speaking fees from Goldman Sachs, an issue that he now targets almost daily. He also gave her a pass on her use of private email as Secretary of State, even though some allies of his wanted him to exploit it. And he insisted on devoting time to his job as a senator from Vermont last year rather than matching Mrs. Clinton's all-out effort to capture the nomination. Sanders advisor Tad Devine, by the way, responded to your report today in an interview with Andrew Mitchell. Here he is.
When I first talked to them about this a couple of weeks ago, I think they were determined to write a story that if Bernie Sanders had run a tough, personal, negative campaign, he could have defeated Hillary Clinton. There's only one problem with that. He was never going to run that campaign. That's not who he is.
Patrick, what inspired you to write a story about what might have been last year or earlier in the campaign. I mean, Bernie's doing pretty well right now. Why go back to what could have, would have, should have happened months ago?
Well, that's exactly it, Chris. He's doing really well right now, and the reality is that he's still far behind Hillary Clinton in terms of the pledged delegate count, certainly in terms of superdelegates, but the pledged delegate number is key. He's more than twice behind her compared to the lead that Obama had over Hillary Clinton in 2008 that Hillary Clinton was never able to catch up to. So what we were looking at was looking at the question of is Hillary Clinton beatable? You know, was she beatable? And did Sanders do kind of whatever it took to beat her? And what we found in reporting and talking to Tad Devine and others is that there were sort of a series of judgment calls or missed opportunities in 2015 that could have positioned Bernie Sanders to be in a much sort of stronger posture against Hillary Clinton in the pledged delegate count right now. Their entire strategy was based on sweeping Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. That didn't happen. They only won New Hampshire. They had to change strategy after Nevada. Then they had to change strategy again after Super Tuesday, and they find themselves now doing well. He's got a good chance of winning in Wisconsin tomorrow. You know, he's going to contest New York pretty firmly, but he's still so far behind in the pledged delegates. And, you know, we can sort of jockey and strategize and spin all we want, but the delegate math, as Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama knew very well in 2008, and as you know, is the essential sort of standard here. And the reality is the questions are being asked, even in the Sanders campaign, could there have been a way to have a, you know, much closer fight now than they do?
And that's exactly what I said, and that's what I argue with most of the guys that when I kind of get on Bernie for not doing everything he could. The numbers are the only things that matter. And when he didn't go after her, okay, as hard as he could have, and again, his whole claim to fame is not running a negative race. Well, he didn't have to run a negative race against her. All he had to do was point things out and just and ask questions. That's not negative. That's just straight out questioning. Okay, that's not negative. And the other issue I had was he, as this gentleman just said, spent a lot of time in the Senate doing his job, but everybody and their brother knows that he had to contest her in the southern states. Now, in my opinion, was he ever going to win any of those southern states? Probably not. But his job was to knock her numbers down so that she didn't get all of those numbers out of places like South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, etc. If he could have just knocked her numbers down by 10 points, he'd be in a world of a better place right now, and he didn't do it.
Patrick, well, it's great to have you back covering politics again, my buddy. Thank you. Coming up, Congresswoman Moore, would Hillary Clinton have given Bernie Sanders a buy on the emails if it was his problem? I watched tonight that Bernie Sanders in that debate says enough about the emails. Would Hillary Clinton have ever let a guy off the hook?
No.
He had her, and he let her go. And that's when I said, this is a protest campaign. This guy's not running to win. By the way, let's go back to Hillary again. Is she going to win here tomorrow night?
I think Hillary is. I think anytime, Chris, that your campaign relies on not having African Americans in the state, relies on not having Latinos, and that you have bragging rights about your potential to win because you don't have a diverse state.
Yeah.
I think that just speaks volumes about what
What do your constituents think of Bernie when you talk to them? What do they think of Senator Sanders?
Well, you know,
Stranger? Is he a stranger?
Well, you know, it's always good to have new friends.
Yeah.
And so there are many people that have never heard of Bernie Sanders, and I point out to them that he's been elected to something or another since 1981. And so whatever criticisms they have of Hillary Clinton, said, yeah, but guess what? She's been there. She's been there through the good times, through the bad times, stuff that's broken. She's made efforts in this legislature to fix.
That is absolutely not flipping true. Hillary Clinton has she does have some legislative work, but she doesn't have a tremendous amount of legislative work, especially legislative work that would have helped the people in the country. She does have legislative work that helps the citizens of the state of New York. You know, I'm not even going to dispute there. But as far as her having like nationwide reaching legislation, nah, she doesn't have that. Okay, so you know, again, Bernie has been in Wisconsin and he's pushing, and the other thing is, Clinton was getting like 80 to 85% of the African American vote. Well, Bernie has started knocking that down. Okay, so right now he's up in the 25 to 30% range, which again, you know, that's a huge margin, but it's a big difference from what he was getting. And he's got to cut into that Hispanic and African American vote. And the test is going to be in New York, because you talking about African American and Hispanic vote. New York is the place that you're going to see which way the wind is blowing.
And Bernie is a new friend with aspirational, professorial.
Okay, I got a question for both of you. Why does Hillary Clinton get dull when she gets in the lead? The minute she gets ahead, it looks like she's going to win. No more excitement, no more charisma. Just, I'm ahead and I'm sitting here. It's like the tortoise and the hare.
Well,
what is it? How come the campaign is getting tight right now? Bernie is gaining on Hillary right now. Why?
Well, Bernie spends a lot of time here, and let me just.
How about nationwide? Nationwide, it's down to about 5 points.
Right. Well, you know, Bernie is exciting. I mean, he's promising no health care premiums. He's promising free college. He's going to decriminalize marijuana. He's going to do all this, and he hasn't any numbers behind any of his initiatives.
What's Hillary going to do?
Well, I think.
What's Hillary going to do?
What Hillary is going to do what Hillary does.
See, and this broad can't answer the damn question, okay? So this is ridiculous. You know, she's spinning Hillary, and she's got no substance behind her spin.
And that is that she is willing to sit down, even with people who don't agree with her, and come to some kind of consensus.
What's one thing she's going to do for the Democratic voter that they can get excited about when they vote tomorrow?
Well, one of the things she's going to do for people here in Wisconsin is not just complain about manufacturing jobs.
That's not doing anything.
Leaving the state, but actually is going to put the political will together to really put some resources into the solar energy economy.
This is the problem you got with Hillary. Yeah, Patrick, that is the problem. Hillary Clinton does not have an exciting, glistening object she can put out in front of the voter and says, if you elect me, I will do this.
Well, Chris, creating jobs ought to be exciting.
Well, but they all promise that.
She's never caught on in that way in terms of being the exciting, high enthusiasm candidate. The Clinton campaign can point to different polls that sort of show that she's that her supporters are enthusiastic, but the reality is she got several hundred supporters out in Harlem the other day. Bernie Sanders had 18,000 out in the Bronx. There's just a difference there. But the reality is, as you know well, the tightness that's going on right now, sort of the nervousness in her camp, a lot of it is about New York. She cannot allow herself to be beaten in her adopted home state. That is a real concern. She beat Obama by 18 points in 2008. If somehow Bernie Sanders is able to flip this and he's able to beat her there, while the delegate math may not change appreciably, it could change somewhat, but more so it will create such a counter narrative to the Hillary Clinton campaign that the primaries after that in Pennsylvania, California, and also the superdelegate conversations could become really problematic for Hillary.
Just one word from you. How will Bernie's accent go over in New York?
I think it'll go over pretty well, Chris. I think they'll be wondering about, like, this guy's from Vermont? Really?
I know. It sounds like local. Anyway, thank you. What subway stop is that, Senator? Thank you, U.S. Congresswoman Glenn Moore from here for welcoming us, and Patrick Healy on the New York Times.
Yeah, see, this woman, she's coming off like she's coming off as ignorant, okay? She's trying to spin for Hillary Clinton and has no substance behind anything she's talking, she's saying. Yeah, Hillary Clinton. Oh, yeah, she's going to stop talking about the lack of jobs, and she's going to try to sit down across the table. What the hell? Okay, the question is, what is she going to get when she sits down across the table from somebody, you know, that has Hillary Clinton is a politician. She's going for the highest office in the land. She doesn't really have a, you know, she talks a lot of bullshit, but she doesn't really have a program that really going to help the people, quote unquote, okay? But she's touting her experience and her ability to work across the aisle. Well, hell, Bernie Sanders has gotten more done across the aisle than probably any other senator that's currently sitting in the Senate at this time. So that argument is going out the window. I am hoping that Bernie can kick her ass by at least 10 points in Wisconsin, even though I don't think that's going to happen. But I am really hoping he wears her ass out when they get to New York. Because if he, like I've said, I believe he's going to win upstate New York. If he can get Brooklyn, which is where he was born and raised, if he can get the Bronx, okay, and again, both of these are heavily minority communities, black and Hispanic, okay? Queens, he might be able to do some work on, and I believe he's going to be able to take Long Island. If she just gets Staten Island, which is police haven 101, more cops that work for NYPD live in Staten Island and slightly upstate New York than any other borough. Okay, so Clinton might be able to get Queens. I'm sorry, might be able to get Staten Island. And the money's in Manhattan, so she's probably going to get Manhattan, though Manhattan has a very large minority population in Manhattan. Once you get up into Harlem, into East Harlem, and start and going up the west side into the Washington Heights area and further above, you're talking blacks and Hispanics, okay? So he's got the possibility of being able to kick her ass, but he's got to get the Hispanic vote, and he's got to get the black vote, okay, to at least side with him somewhat. If he can get, again, if he can get up into 35–40% of the minority vote in New York, together with the white vote that I believe he's got locked up, that will lead to a 10-point victory, and Clinton will have to fall back to that Pennsylvania firewall that she's already starting to construct, because she's scared to death of what's going to happen in New York.